Hey everyone, my name is Mike Goedeker. I'm the owner, founder, and creator of the Silver Crow Method, the Social Network Shaman, and Silver Crow Apothecary. Today we're going to take a brief discourse into what I call the human brain firewall, or what is known as the Silver Crow Method. The most sophisticated security system is also your biggest vulnerability. So every organization understands the concept of firewall. It's a layered defense system that filters what gets in and what gets processed and what drives the action. What most people don't realize is that the human brain operates on exactly the same principle as that computer firewall, but only in the human brain. You already have that firewall in you. So the question is, who programmed it? The Silver Crow method brings together the precision of cybersecurity thinking and the deep wisdom of shamanic tradition and other modalities to answer that very question. And there's a reason for this. I'll get to that in a little bit of a while. More importantly, it gives you back the control over your own system, mainly the human brain. So what's the stack? How is the human firewall built? As the Human Firewall Stack shows, the human system operates in distinct but deeply interconnected layers, just like we see in the cyber or IT firewall. From the outermost AI digital environment all the way down to the root level of action and risk. Each layer can be exploited. Each layer has a defense, and crucially, every layer finds and feeds the one beneath it. At the top sits the AI or digital layer. It's that vast, algorithmically driven information environment we swim in every day or daily. Below that, you have your attention layer. That determines what you actually notice and focus on. Then comes the nervous system, that biological engine that processes everything your attention has allowed inside of it. Then we have the decision layer. That sits beneath the nervous system, determining the quality of your choices. And at the very bottom, we have the action and risk, what you actually do in the world based off of the previous levels or layers and how you've processed that information. But there's some more underlying really important information that we'll get to in a second. And that's where kind of like that shamanic lens comes in. It's not of a woo-woo thing. It's more of like, how do we understand how we work as human beings? So it's kind of like a mixture of psychology and that old modality of belief systems we had in the past where more tribal groups of people have worked with and successfully worked with before we had clinicians and before we had psychiatrists. So this is not just a metaphor. This is an actual architecture. And like any architecture, it can be compromised. So let's talk about how we process that information and what is the underlying operating system type of areas that we have. And this is where we use that shamanic lens that is called the first and the second attention. So when we take a look at modalities like shamanic traditions, they understood this layered reality for thousands of years, which is the reason why we look at these things through the framework of the first attention and the second attention. In the first attention, we have our ordinary or waking consciousness. That's a part of us that reads these words, manages your calendar, responds to emails, and navigates the social world. It is the layer most people believe is them. It is the conscious, rational, operating surface or system. The second attention is something far older and far more powerful. It is the deep field of awareness beneath conscious thought. The place where the body holds its history, where memory lives not as narrative but as sensation, where the patterns that govern your behavior were written long before you had words for them. The second attention is the operating system. The first attention is merely the screen. So when a firewall breach happens almost entirely at the level of the second attention, below the threshold of conscious awareness. And this is precisely why most people feel controlled by patterns they cannot see, cannot explain, and cannot seem to shift no matter how much they understand them intellectually. This is not a brain thing, this is a knowing thing, and knowing in the body where this stuff is stored, and it is stored. The energy chains, agreements, cords, and blockages. This is where the second image becomes essential to understanding what is actually happening inside this stack. In agreements, we have that hidden code. Before you were old enough to question the world, you were already signing contracts with it. Not consciously, not deliberately, but your nervous system desperate to find safety and belonging, made deeply encoded decisions about what your reality was, what you must do, who you must be, what is safe, and what isn't safe. These agreements, or hidden beliefs and subconscious contracts that run silently in the background of every interaction, every decision, every relationship. I must overgive to be loved. I cannot say no or I will be abandoned. I must keep the peace or something terrible will happen. These agreements feel like personality. They feel like truth. They are neither. They are old code written by a younger, more frightened version of you that assembled these agreements because it's what kept you safe and what kept you alive. So they're still executing in an entirely different life than the one that you actually have at present. So in this firewall stack, agreements function as corrupted rule sets like a firewall. At the nervous system layer, though, they determine what gets flagged as a threat, what triggers an alarm, and what bypasses your conscious attention entirely, routing directly to reactive behavior. What are cords? Cords are the drain on bandwidth. Agreements do not exist in isolation. Every significant agreement creates an energetic attachment called a cord to the person, experience, or belief system from which the agreement was born. These cords are not metaphorical. They manifest as the chronic tension that you carry in your shoulders, in your heart, in your chest, in your abdomen, in your stomach. When you think of a certain person, the tightening in your chest in certain meetings, the exhaustion that arrives for no apparent reason. Cords drain energy continuously, like background processes consuming processing power. They keep part of your system perpetually occupied with the past, running calculations on old data, maintaining connections that no longer serve you, and pulling your first attention back into the patterns your second attention refuses to release. In a firewall stack, cords create distraction loops and cognitive overwhelm. Not because you lack discipline, but because a significant portion of your nervous system's resources are already allocated elsewhere. Intrusions and blockages, stored trauma in the body. When agreements and cords are sustained long enough, the body begins to store the unprocessed emotional energy as physical tension and blockage. The silver crow method identifies the primary sites of the storage: the heart, the solar plexus, and the gut. The three great centers where human beings carry their heaviest loads, but also in the stomach areas that regulate our health. These are not incidental locations. The heart holds grief, loss, and the pain of disconnection. The solar plexus holds shame, powerlessness, and suppressed anger. The gut holds fear, the oldest, most primal alarm system in the human body. In the firewall stack, these blockages manifest at the decision layer as psychological stress, cognitive fatigue, and autonomic imbalance. The body, flooded with stored emotional energy, simply cannot make clear decisions. It defaults not to wisdom or knowing and experience, but to the path of least nervous system disruption, which is almost always an old pattern. And that old pattern is the thing that keeps us in place and blocks us from moving forward, from learning the lessons that we need to do, but more importantly, making decisions that could be detrimental to a corporation and to our own success. So here's the Silver Crow method. We want to rewrite this firewall. Understanding the problem is just not the solution. The Silver Crow method goes further. It provides a precise, structured, and deeply humane technology for dissolving this energy chains and installing new agreements that actually serve the person you are becoming. Now, this sounds logical, but there's a process, a very specific process that we have uniquely created that works like this. Some of it is, for instance, journey work, entering the second attention. One of the primary vehicles that we use of change in the Silver Crow method is journey work. It's a form of guided shamanic meditation that moves consciousness from the first attention to the second attention, where the agreements, cords, and blockages actually live, and they link to those patterns. Intellectual understanding alone cannot reach these depths. You cannot think your way out of a pattern that does not live in thought. Journey work bypasses the rational mind's gatekeeping function and creates a direct access to the subconscious architecture or level, the place where the original contract was written and where it can be renegotiated. The dissolution process, layer by layer. The Silver Crow method works through the energy chain in sequence, and this sequencing matters enormously. First, the agreement is identified and brought into conscious awareness. Then, this is the moment of profound recognition, not the intellectual understanding that I have this pattern, but the direct, embodied seeing of the exact moment the agreement was made, and the younger self who made it for a very good reason, for instance, to survive. With the agreement seen clearly, the cord clearing follows, the deliberate guided process releasing the energetic attachments that have sustained the pattern. As the cord dissolves, energy that was permanently allocated to maintaining that is freed. Many people describe this as a sudden lightness or a release of tension they have come to believe was simply part of who they were. Then the blockage. The stored emotional charge in the body can be addressed and released. Guided meditation and specific shamanic techniques allow us to tap that trapped energy held in the heart, solar plexus, and gut to move, to process, and to leave the body. This is the stage where genuine physiological change occurs, where the nervous system begins to reset itself. And this is a eureka moment, really awesome. The new agreement, collapsing that old pattern. Here is the element that separates the Silver Crow method from approaches that only clear or only release or only remove. The dissolution alone creates a vacuum, and vacuums are quickly filled, often by the same pattern wearing a different face. The final and most critical step is the installation of a new agreement. That is a conscious, chosen, life-serving contract that the person makes with themselves from a place of wholeness rather than from fear. This is a new agreement that is not an affirmation. It is not a positive thought pasted over a wound. It is a genuine renegotiation of the terms by which that person relates to themselves and to the rest of the world. When a new agreement is installed at the depth of the second attention, it does not merely supplement the old one, it collapses it energetically and neurologically. The old pattern loses its anchor in the brain, and the stored emotional energy that sustained it is released, often experienced as heat, tears, breath, or simply a deep and unfamiliar sense of peace. The firewall has been reprogrammed, not by force, but by consent, not from the outside, but from within. Why does this matter for performance, the corporate application of all this? In the corporate context, the human brain firewall is not a wellness initiative. It is a strategic performance architecture. Every leader operating from unexamined agreements is making decisions through a corrupted filter. Every team member carrying uncleared cords is bringing only a fraction of their cognitive capacity to their work. Every organization whose people are running on blocked, depleted nervous systems is operating at a fraction of its true potential. And the spending enormous resources trying to compensate for that deficit through process, structure, and external pressure. The Silver Crow method addresses the root. When the firewall is clean, then the agreements serve rather than limit, then cords no longer drain the bandwidth. When the nervous system is reset and the body is no longer carrying yesterday's unfinished business, something remarkable happens. People begin to act from conscious choice rather than subconscious compulsion. Decision quality improves, reactivity drops, creativity, collaboration, and leadership capacity expand. Not because anything was added, but because the blocks were finally removed. The human firewall is your greatest asset. The Silver Crow method is how you take back control of it. With that, I hope this was useful for you. If you have any questions and if you want to book us for meetings at your corporation or one-to-ones, let me know. Email me at michael@silvercrowmethod.com, and I'll see you there.